Welcome to our masterclass, the 4 drivers of a happy and lucrative exit for your clients. My name is Laura Ferguson, and I'm the Vice President of Sales and Business Development here at the Value Builder System. And I'm really excited to be able to share some insights with you today. Whether you're an advisor that is really focused on building a growth plan with a business owner that's maybe 15, 20 years out from an exit, or you're focusing on building business value, or straight exit planning that might include obviously value acceleration as part of that, you'll notice that all of those concepts tend to be very focused on the business itself, which is great. But the reality is that we're actually missing a really key component, which is the role of the business owner. And that's what I want to dig into a little bit today, because here's the thing. If a business owner exits their business and they have regrets, this is affecting your view as a trusted advisor within the marketplace. It's affecting future referrals. And of course, it's really not the end goal after spending all that time working with business owners. In fact, even worse than that, we actually know that the business owner themselves has a key impact on the actual value of their company in the marketplace. And so getting it right to make sure that they're personally ready for that exit is going to be absolutely key. Let's dig in. The first thing that I want to talk through is that if you are talking to somebody that's going to be thinking about exiting their business, again, whether this is 6 months, 1 year, 5 years out, the first question that you really need to be kind of addressing is if their business is ready to sell. As I just stated, there is a second question that's just as important, and this is, are you personally ready to exit? So today, as we go through these 4 drivers, everything that I'm going to share with you, including some case study examples, some data and research from working with more than 65,000 business owners, are going to be things that you'll be able to then take into your discussions with your clients. To set the stage, I thought I would share a quote from one of my favorite keynotes that we've had to one of our kind of events in the past. His name's Beau Burlingham. You might know him as the guy that wrote The Great Game of Business with Jack Stack. He wrote Small Giants. And of course, my favorite book, which is a book on exiting called Finish Big. It's a quote from Finish Big that I wanted to spend a little time on. So Beau writes that many owners who have sold find themselves dealing with unanticipated regret, fighting with depression, and desperately in need of a new identity and sense of purpose. So again, this is something that's being researched in the marketplace. It's not just us. When we take a look at some information from the State of Owner Readiness from the Exit Planning Institute, more research says that business owners actually regret their exit 1 year after leaving. As many as 75% of business owners have regretted their decision. And only 5% are actually happy from the net proceeds of their sale. Our goal is to help business owners kind of cash in on that nest egg, or really be able to figure out what the next steps are for their future. When they're unhappy after exiting, it doesn't really matter how valuable their business is. We haven't done our job. So let's go through those 4 drivers of that satisfying exit and start to frame some of the questions or conversations that you should be having around those. So I will share that we do have a tool that a lot of this research is going to come from. It's called PreScore, which stands for the Personal Readiness to Exit Score. And it measures an owner's readiness to exit. So the algorithm that drives this is based on these 4 main drivers of a happy and lucrative exit. Again, we've completed more than 180 in-depth interviews. I think we're up to 250 now, but at the time we started kind of pulling some of this research in of founders that have exited their business on Built to Sell Radio. We've worked with 65,000 business owners, coming in and actually giving us information about what's going on with their business. And so what we've learned along the way is that these happy and lucrative exits seem to kind of come down to these 4 main factors. The first factor is future vision. Most owners get pushed out of their business, but the happiest of exits actually occur when an owner has a greater or equal number of pull factors than push factors. So again, push factors would be things like the need to retire or a health scare, but the happiest exits involve owners who have something pulling them out of their business. So a vision for something they want to do in the future. So let's take a look at some of those push factors, just to kind of set the stage a little bit here. So again, this is going to be things like it's time to retire. I'm a little bored. I feel stressed out, burnt out. The market is peaked. When it comes to feeling pushed out of their businesses, most business owners actually just say that they're ready for their payday. They want to cash out. That's more than half of business owners. Half of business owners are exiting because they say it's time to retire. Or it's too much stress. And burnout follows really close behind that. And that's not going to lead to a happy exit. It's probably actually going to stall some of your client work, particularly if you're transaction focused when they go to exit their business, because it's something that can change very easily. And of course, as part of, your coaching and you're working through and consulting, if you're doing any of that, it's something that they can't really hold to. It's a problem. Whereas pull factors are something that they can be pulled towards. So it's the thing that actually can drive them out of wanting to exit their business. So this can be things like traveling, getting fit, spending more time with their grandkids, starting a foundation, writing a book, new business, all of those things. When we pull business owners to ask them what the top pull factors are, they are family time, travel, focusing on my health, focusing on a new hobby, things outside of work, things that you can pull people towards. 1 in 3 owners actually have more push factors than pull factors and are more likely to regret their exit post-sale. And so this means, as part of your conversations very early on with your clients that may be considering an exit in the future, you want to start by trying to develop a list of pull factors, things that they can be pulled towards in the future. I'll share with you a great example that could kind of start or kind of frame this conversation. It comes to us from Sean Oshman, who was Built to Sell Radio episode 100 and the founder of a company called I Support You. This is a Colorado-based kind of IT support company. So if you wanted somebody to manage your computers or ward off viruses, Sean was your guy. He decided that he wanted to lead a life a little less than ordinary. So he was 39. His company was kind of generating a couple of $1 million in revenue when he decided that by the age of 40, he wanted to be living on a sailboat, kind of sailing around the world with his fiance, now wife. And so Oshman hires a business broker named Front Range, and they went to about kind of marketing the business. Oshman's company garnered an offer of 2 to 3 times seller's discretionary earnings. Now, this is a fair, but as you know, far from fantastic multiple for his business. And yet Oshman was completely ecstatic about it because he had a vision for the future that he was excited about. And 2 to 3 times seller's discretionary earnings allowed him to make that dream a reality. When we go and actually take a look at the Built to Sell Radio episodes, again, you can see that this is not a fantastic multiple, but Sean's episode continues to be one of the most downloaded episodes. And it's a fantastic story to kind of showcase that business owners want to have that future vision. So it's fantastic if you can sit down and start developing that early. The second driver of a happy and lucrative exit is called structuring flexibility, which describes an owner's willingness to consider multiple exit scenarios. A lot of founders make the mistake of approaching their exit with this rigid vision of how they see it. They imagine an acquirer writing them an outlandish check in exchange for the keys, which the owner hands them as they ride off into the sunset. And as we know, this virtually never is the case, of course. Most founders have to stay on to help a new owner transition into the business. And the more flexible an owner is as to how they'll approach that exit, keeping all of their exit options kind of open, the more buyers that will be interested in exploring a deal. Now, you and I both know more buyers at the table means more competition, which in turn leads to higher valuations and better deal terms for the founder, which is why being flexible about how a deal is structured leads to better exits. And so again, some of those things that might affect their transition could be things like they may be asked in a smaller business to play the role of the lender. So kind of like the bank. So they'll get a certain amount in cash and the rest they'll kind of almost be financing for the buyer themselves. They may get a part in cash, but they'll also get an earnout. So again, going to get kind of paid out of a certain period of time. They may be able to kind of exit the business in the sense of financials, but they'll also be asked to kind of stay on as a consultant as part of that transition to help that transition or success kind of speed up, and they'll get paid a consulting fee. Again, they may also kind of stay on as a little bit of a shareholder. And when we look at the reasons that owner wants to get out, the top one is selling outright. 30% of business owners only choose the one option. But to summarize, more exit options or more roles that the owner is comfortable playing during that transition period, the more they'll actually be able to walk away with. There is no example of this better than the example that comes to us from Stephanie Breedlove. She was the founder of Breedlove and Associates. She was also Built to Sell Radio guest episode 74. Stephanie built her payroll company by focusing on parents who want to pay their nannies. So she had a nanny. She went to go obviously pay her nanny, realized how complex it was. She found a really great niche. She built her business to $9 million in annual revenue. And this is over a long period of time when she started acquisition discussions with care.com. Now, this is, kind of a similar venture-backed site to Angie's List, where users enter their zip code or served up with kind of a list of care providers, all rated 5 stars by Furniture Cosmetics. So Ben, big company. And Breedlove originally wanted an all-cash offer. And so care.com obviously provides this, and it's slower than what she had imagined. So she becomes a little bit more open to the idea of accepting part of her proceeds in shares of care.com and agreeing to an earnout. She ends up selling her $9 million business for $54 million, half of which was paid out in care.com stock, which would later go on to an initial public offering, an IPO. And again, obviously resulting in a lot more money. Had Stephanie clung rigidly to only one option for selling, she may never have received such a lucrative payday. So one of the first things that you're going to want to do, of course, is to start talking about that structurability or that structuring of those different exit options and what that looks like, so that they don't think they can hand their keys over and ride off into the sunset. But it also brings up the concept of starting to talk about the value of their company. More than half of business owners actually say that they have their minimum number locked down. They know kind of what they want to get from their business. And yet more than half of those people actually haven't received a value estimate in the last 2 years. And so the reason that I mention this is because you want to start having a conversation about the potential value of the company in order to start figuring out the different levers that you can play when structuring flexibility. So it's a great idea to at least consider some sort of estimate of value as part of this, instead of just kind of talking in without those numbers and cents kind of added in for them. They may have a number in their head that is quite different to what is on paper. The third driver of a happy exit is the degree to which a founder's ego is dependent on his status as the owner of his company. So here we're going to look at things like how long an owner has owned the business for. Did they start the business? So did they found it or did they buy it? How much of it they own? So do they own 100%, 50%? Is their name on the door? All of these factors can lead to an owner becoming unwilling or unable to let go. For a happy exit, they need to have a healthy life outside of their business. Steve Murch, who's the founder of Big Oven and also Built to Sell Radio, episode 161, if you want to go listen to the episode, really shows us the way on this. Because Murch has had 4 exits, including his first and most spectacular, which was the sale of vacationspot.com to Expedia for $87 million. And since then, Murch has gone on to kind of sell 4 other businesses, including the sale of his recipe app, Big Oven, which of course featured in the Built to Sell Radio episode. This enjoyed 13 million downloads and 4 million subscribers, and he sold it to the grocery giant Aisle Ahead Inc. But here's the thing. It sounds like, wow, he's built some fantastic companies. He was far from being a workaholic. Murch built an amazing life for himself outside of his business. He's a cyclist, a skier, involved father of 3, attentive husband. He was the head chef in his house, which is, of course, how he came up with the idea for Big Oven in the first place. He's an active political commentator. He travels extensively. And throughout his 4 exits, he's never become too personally attached to any of them. None of them bore his name, and he always kept a healthy distance, being careful not to be too personally attached to any one of his businesses. And this is how he's been able to build them and then exit them. The reality, of course, is that businesses have a high dependency on their owner. In fact, when we poll business owners, nearly 75% of them say that they're still working 40 plus hours a week. Now, of course, this is affecting their value in a few ways. They're working 40 hours a week. A buyer is going to be say what's going to happen to sales after the business owner leaves. But not only that, if they're working 40 hours a week, what happens after they leave? They're suddenly having no 40 hours a week filled with work. So think about asking them how much they're still working and how that they think that that exit will turn out if they're still working 40 hours a week. 1 in 5 business owners actually have their name on the door. So again, they name their business after them, making it even more difficult for them to be able to kind of detach themselves with it. And 8 in 10 owners mix their work life with their social life. So again, they have birthday parties where the majority of attendees are their employees. They go to weddings with them. They really, really have a tight-knit circle. And so when you think about being personally detached, again, once you exit that business, that's going to affect those relationships internally as well. The fourth factor, which leads to a healthy exit, is being proactive about how you want to treat your team as part of the exit process. This is a deeply, deeply personal issue for founders, some of whom would prefer not to tell employees for the fear of word kind of getting out among competitors. Others can't imagine the duplicity of asking employees to join them in their business only to turn around and sell it from under their nose. What I want to share with you now is there's no one size fits all answer for how an owner should treat their team. The only truly wrong answer here is to not think it through proactively. So in other words, you want them to start developing a plan early on. This is actually going to affect how they might choose to grow their team, who they choose to bring into kind of that inner circle of management. There are a lot of things or a lot of benefits to thinking this through early and being sure that they're clear along the way. Now, owners say that they're looking out for their team. In fact, more than half of them say it's important to me that an acquirer agrees to keep most of my employees. Yet more than half have only taken one or no actions at all to ensure that this happens. And again, this can lead to a lot of personal regret or unhappiness once they go to exit their business. Bobby Martin actually shares that this was the case for him. He was a founder of kind of a company called First Research, and he was built to sell radio episode number 12. When Bobby started to kind of figuring out selling his company to D&B for $26 million, the reality was that the sale was actually a financial success for Bobby and his co-founder. But emotionally, he shares that it was crushing. He had started First Research with friends and promoted kind of this collegial atmosphere through First Research's growth. In fact, it was to the point that if they went to events or trade shows or, kind of hung out with their competitors, that it was remarked of how close-knit and family-like the team appeared to be. And so when negotiations with D&B kind of heated up, he felt guilty not being able to tell his longstanding employees, many of whom had become his closest friends. And after the sale, Martin went through a bout of depression. And he spent a year in clinical therapy getting over the loss he felt for selling out his team. Had he thought through that plan proactively and really evaluated his personal decision whether he wanted to involve his team, this might turn out differently. So in summary, let's go over what it is that you should be looking at as part of those drivers to a happy and lucrative exit and some of the steps that you can start taking with your business owners today. So the first is, of course, to start discussing that future vision, whether they feel pushed out of their business, whether they're feeling pulled out of their business, and reinforce or build a longer list of pull factors. And again, these are things that you're going to want to come back to frequently as part of your conversations with your clients to reinforce what they're doing all these changes for, or what they're building the business for, or why they're thinking through this exit plan. The second step, of course, is to encourage structuring flexibility with multiple exit options, starting to get them to consider which exit options they would be comfortable with, starting to get them to look at the potential value of their business as it stands today, or what that future value might look like. Then you want to get them to start evaluating their personal detachment and the steps that they can take in advance to start to detach themselves from their business. And this can include things like working less hours, considering building hobbies and more of a social life, or more of a life outside of their business, not allowing the business to be the center of everything, their ego to be tied to that business itself and the fact that their name is on the door, for example. And then consider the team involvement in a future exit. This is really great whether you're still in the growth plans and kind of thinking through the next stage for a management team, but really starting to get them to consider what that could look like in the future as part of your planning sessions. And then finally, as step 5, I encourage you to kind of measure and discuss these drivers annually. So if you're working with a business owner for multiple years, just like it takes time for a business to get ready for exit, it can take some time for them to start making those shifts for themselves personally. If you're a little bit deeper into the exit process, it's really important for you to start setting those expectations almost immediately as to their personal readiness for their exit. This is going to be absolutely key for you, helping to maintain your trusted advisor status. While we're on the subject of trusted advisor, if you haven't checked out our trusted advisors 3-part video series, be sure to do that with the follow-up that's going to come. And we will be sure to share that with you. I think it's a fantastic resource to learn more about business owners, the psychology behind why business owners make the decisions that they do, as well as some top tips to help you continue to reinforce that trusted advisor status. Thank you so much for enjoying this masterclass. I hope that you've had some key insights come out from it. Have a great day.